Wanna live good, you gotta work for it. Everything I gotta have to work for it. Wanna live good, you gotta work for it. Work for it, work for it.
Hey, I'm Creed with Defiant Fit. So I just wrapped up a few series of shoulder presses, dumbbell shoulder presses, seated dumbbell shoulder presses, and just let's go over the basics. I like to go over kind of a wrap up, and you're gonna see the actual exercises, and I'll annotate and talk about each exercise. On the dumbbell, let's call it shoulder press. You might call it a military press. There are all kinds of names. I like a little bit of an angle in my bench. So I'm sitting down, and then I don't really like the bench straight up and down. Obviously, it's not at a 45-degree angle, but I'm thinking 10, 15 degrees in the angle of that bench, because it lets me just kind of get in that open position. If you think about it, you go to lift something over your head, and if you were to grab a bar, man, it would be really hard to stay completely vertical and lift that straight up. So what your body wants to do is, as you're lifting, it kind of wants to go at that angle. And so when you're doing a seated military press, shoulder press, I just start and stay there, okay? A couple of extraordinarily unique things I do, and I've stripped down my home dumbbells for this. I let the weight ride right across that palm, and I'm gonna show you here in a second. So the bar portion is running diagonally from essentially where this little cleavage is here on the palm to essentially where your lifeline is, at an angle like that. The other thing that I do that's pretty unique is I get up toward the outer edge of the dumbbell, whatever the part of the dumbbell that's going to kind of be closest to me in this case on a overhead press. And I let one end naturally drop down. So I'm not trying to hold it dead parallel or straight. I'm letting that guy drop right on down in there. Why? Why am I doing all this stuff? When I was young, I'd like to destroy my joints by huge weights and not worrying about form or anything else. We just wanted to lift big weights. I don't like that anymore. I'm 63. And so when I do my military press, what you're seeing, or what you will see shortly, is I'm gonna come down, and my palms are not quite facing me, but they're in this super neutral position. And I'm just slightly in front of my body. And as I go up, they're gonna rotate and go to a position that's about like this. So it's maybe, think of it as in this direction, about 45 degrees. This thing would be 90. This would be closer to 45. That tail's dropped, my hand's in that open position. And then as I come down, it'll go somewhere between being parallel to slightly facing me. I won't say it's a full 45 degrees, but it's something like that. And this sounds crazy, right? And I keep my hands pretty much wide open the way you see them. Because if I don't death grip this thing, I don't engage the forearm and the arm, what I'm doing is I'm forcing everything to squeeze up through the shoulders the whole time. And I just finished that set, and just doing that right there reminded me that I just finished a bunch of reps. Try it, and trust me, I spent decades. I'd be here, right? Those elbows are kind of here, and you'd biff it up, come down, you biff it up. And yeah, I could lift a whole bunch of weight, but I also could blow my shoulders out every 3 to 4 months because I get greedy and want too much weight. Just try this method. Watch the video, learn a little something. You're gonna have to use substantially less weight than you might if you're used to doing it like this. But if you do it the way I do it, and after a couple reps, you'll find you can get really deep and really not stress the joint. Now the shoulder muscles, all 3 lobes, are starting to light up. When you come up out of here, don't come up. Start squeezing through the shoulders and keep squeezing all the time. And then same thing all the way down, breaking with those muscles and not bouncing the joints at all. You're gonna find that this is just gonna devastate your shoulders all the way around, not just in the front, but the front, the middle, and even the back of the shoulder. Because when you're down here, it's stabilizing. And to get started, since you're not bouncing, you have to start squeezing up through that rear and working your way up. Just try them. Try them with some light weight. And what I'm doing on all my exercises now is a light, heavy, light, heavy. And what that means is I'll do a set that's just lighter weight that maybe I could do 12 or 15 times, at least on the first set. And then a heavier weight, which is something between 6 and 10. And then I go back and forth like that. You're stressing out the body by doing that, not in a bad way, in a good way. And you're being more disciplined. I think you'll have far, far less joint pain. And I really believe if you do these correctly, and I'm talking like 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 seconds in each direction. If you do it like that, squeezing through the muscles, focusing completely on that shoulder. If you try this, I think you're gonna like it. And even if you don't do it exclusively, I think it's gonna become a part of your workout routine. So let's watch the exercise now. So let's talk a little bit about form, the motion, and focusing on those shoulder muscles. Now understand that I come from decades of doing the shoulder presses where the bar is essentially, it's like having a straight bar. Your shoulders would stop right there and you would have to press it up with those dumbbells about there or further straight. And I used to love them. And we used to put a ton of weight on and my shoulders always hurt. Not just the front of the shoulders, but the back of the shoulders. So what I'm doing now is that nice neutral and natural grip that I use on both bench and on these overhead presses. You can see my hands are open. They're close to one tail end of the dumbbell. And the other end is actually, especially as I come forward, dropping down. And I am getting twice the amount of motion that I did in the old style of workout I used to do. And where that's really great is you feel this motion through the entire shoulder group, all 3 lobes, front, middle, back. And when you come down, you give it a half-second pause. And when you come up very slowly in those first couple of inches, you're actually loading up the rear of the shoulder more than you realize. As you go up toward the midpoint, you're loading the front of the shoulder. And then as you round out toward the top, you're going to feel it load the middle of the shoulder. And I'm just really loving these things right now. I've got to be honest with you, you're not going to get to heave the big weights we used to do. We used to have 75, 80, 85 pound dumbbells when we did it the old way, but I never had more than half of the range of motion I do here. And I've always had triple the amount of pain that I do now. So this is really helping me. As far as the cadence goes, what we're trying to do is squeeze those shoulder muscles. This is a mental game, especially on shoulders. You come down and you start squeezing those shoulders up. There's no big thrust, there's no big jerk, there's no bounce at the bottom. And that's what's going to really engage the entire range of all 3 lobes of your shoulder. Here I'm probably doing about a 3-second motion each way, up and down, with a half-second pause at the bottom. Coming out of that bottom position very slowly is what engages all 3 lobes of that shoulder. You're going to want to do that. My elbows, it's a little hard to tell right here, but they're actually a little bit in front of my shoulders. So they're not running up and down parallel with the shoulders. They're a little bit in front of it. You see those tail ends, the front ends of those dumbbells drop down a little bit. Try this, especially as you get to the bottom. You let those tail ends drop a little bit more. You get a wonderful rotation and you get more depth, and you actually feel this through the entire group of shoulder muscles. I've got to be honest with you, after decades of doing this stuff really hardcore the wrong way, this is really starting to feel excellent. We used to do seated 90-degree seat, barbell behind the head military presses, sets of 5. I know, you're not going to believe me. 225 pounds, free weight. We used the squat cage in case we dropped it. And of course, I can't do anything like that nowadays. But that probably destroyed my shoulders. This motion is helping my shoulders recover. I mean it. I haven't had this little pain in decades. Failure. What is failure? When you come down, pause for a half second and squeeze it up through the shoulder muscles. And you can no longer do that well without jerking or jolting or bouncing or sending some kind of a surge through the shoulders and elbows. You've reached failure. Do yourself a favor. Stop at that point. It's when you start jerking and bouncing and twisting to get that weight up that you're going to create harm to yourself. If you do this motion with that pause and squeeze properly until you can't do it anymore, you've reached failure. Take 3 minutes on a big compound like this and then do it again. You're going to love this stuff. Give it a try.
Work for everything I got, I had to work for it. Yeah, living good, a hell of a night, but I had to work for it.